Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Art Platform India, TAP as we call it, TAP Live. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to be with you guys. As you can see, the comment section of the live feed is turned off. So if you have any questions at the end of the conversation, please do send it to the direct message onto the Instagram page. Some of you may already know, but for those who don't know, TAP India is a TAP India is a collective platform which brings together 15 galleries to support art and artists and generate more visibility, explore newer markets, and open doors to conversations with different stakeholders in the art world. Today, we are launching our first TAP Live conversation, a platform for one-to-one candid talks between two people from the industry about experiences, trends, and hopefully we addressed some of your concerns that maybe they're already there concerning the art industry. As a gallerist for over 30 years, I've always liked talking to art collectors to try to understand how they collect art, why they collect art, what makes them choose a particular artist or select a particular artwork, and how do they relate to their art, what they collect in their homes. You'll be surprised at the kind of responses I've got, the kind of stories I've heard from these collectors. They narrate such interesting stories and their search for a particular work and their interaction with artists. I would now like to invite Udit. Hi, Udit.
Hi, Renu.
So we have here with us Udit Bhambri, and I would like to introduce a small little introduction. I think many people know him also, know Udit, especially from Bombay. Udit Bhambri, a 36-year-old Bombay-based collector who bought his first artwork when he was 8 years old and hasn't looked back since visiting galleries. Making artist friends, and even picking works for friends and family ever since he was that young. Art has been an intrinsic part of his life. For him, the value around art centers, around studio visits with Prabhakar Barve, one of my favorites, food tours with M.F. Hussain, and Biennale hopping with artist friends. Today, Udit's personal collection goes beyond artworks by Hussain, Padamsi, Sudhir Patwardhan, Nilima Sheikh, Nalini Manani, coming down to N.S. Harsha, Atul, and Anju Dodia. And he also collects very, very contemporary art. It extends to a collection of stories, learnings, memories, and experiences with galleries, artists, and collectors, something he cherishes the most. And my question, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. Our introduction has been very recent, but I've just got very fascinated by the way you talk about arts, and that's why we thought about chatting with you. Our first TAP Live conversation. Tell us, how were you drawn to art, and what was the first work you brought?
So, I think my art journey was actually quite by accident, and I wouldn't call it a collecting journey because, as you said in your introduction, I really started very young when I was 8. So it really came from the only artist I knew was M.F. Hussain. I mean, everybody knew him. He was walking bare feet and defacing canvases. And all I wanted to do was be M.F. Hussain. I wanted to paint like him. I wanted to be like him. Schools in India, unfortunately, and it's changed a lot now, wouldn't give you that opportunity to really learn as much or explore your own sensibilities in terms of the art you want to pursue. So I used to amble along, in the middle of a golden lunch at the Taj, go to the Taj Art Gallery, or my parents would take me to the Jahangir Art Gallery to just view more works and have access to it. And I think why I say it's by accident is because while I was studying technique, trying to learn how to emulate some of these artists, they thought I was showing a keen interest in their work. So, by back and forth, made me make some very quirky friends with almost a 70-year age gap in some cases, where they were just fascinated by this young 8-year-old kid wanting to learn art. And then subsequently, over a period of time, it was great because, as I said, I wanted to learn about art. And my parents' interactions and, friendships over a period of time with people like Prabhakar Barve, Heber, was so interesting because, Heber said something very interesting to me. He's like, you learn art, but you'll have to unlearn what you learn. which was very fascinating. As you know, you don't think of it like that as a child. And then Barve was like, he actually gifted me his own diary and said, you've been copying these artists at galleries, but I want you to take this book and every work should be your own work. So I got what I mean. I'm really very fortunate and privileged to have that access because I mean I was learning from the best of the best very very early on. Yeah, that's how I got engaged with the arts to begin with.
And what about that autograph book which you just you were mentioning to me about how all these artists used to give you um, autographs, and that itself is a work of art.
Right, absolutely. So obviously, as an 8-year-old, and with my parents also learning, it was also there. It was really quite a parallel journey. So many people think I'm a second generation collector, but they really involved me very, very closely in every selection process, etc. But more of that a little later. Uh, Coming to the autograph book, it was interesting because I would go to galleries. Obviously, I couldn't buy this. I would make really strange friends. I mean, I don't know these people. And I think we have a few slides of the autograph book. I'm not sure if we have them up available. But
Udit, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but we had practiced about showing the slides, but
yeah,
I'm not getting a symbol on
don't.
this.
That's fine. It's not. I mean, it would just it would put some context for the viewers.
Okay, but we'll try. I mean, somebody here from the gallery is trying
But don't
out here.
worry, it's fine. We don't need it.
Hmm.
Going to uh, going to some of these artists and asking them for autographs, because now I look back at it and it's a whole book full of memories. It's actually chronologically talking about every single interaction, and it's really a souvenir of me going back almost 2.5 decades. Some artists I don't know, some have kind of, I don't recognize them. And then you have the likes of Sudhir and Jahangir Sabawala, all of who were so kind to give me that book. And that actually culminated to my first own work that I could say is my own, because I remember Heber. I had gone with my dad, very excited visits after school. I had gone with him and I asked Heber for a signature, and his hand, it was his later in his years. His hand was so shaky that I couldn't have the heart to ask him to draw in the book. And he was so sensitive. He called back the next day and said, "Bring Udit back." I was not able to draw in the book, and he actually gifted me a work, which is
Wow.
still in the house. So many people ask, right? How come Heber in a more contemporary collection? That's why Heber. It's extremely. I mean, few people know he's been at the Venice Biennale in 1957, for example, but
Yes.
those are things that we just learn now, but that's not the reason why I have it or don't have it. It's a very important part of my relationship with some of these artists.
When you're talking about your autographs and your autograph book, it reminds me of when Abhishek Podar and Vivek Gupta used to go to Manjeet Baba, and then, Arpita Singh, it's like, it's the same kind of a thing that's how Manjeet would talk to them about art. Now, coming back to you, let's talk about your collection because your collection is comprised of artists from the moderns to the contemporaries. And so it would be nice if you could. I'm so sorry. I mean, we had selected such wonderful slides, but it's not
Don't worry,
coming here.
I can talk about a few. um, uh, so I don't, Renu, I don't look at it. Are we getting it?
No, I'm just telling her to take a picture and send it to somebody to figure it out. Yeah.
But please don't
Sorry.
worry.
No, I
Don't
don't
bother.
want to say or what we have selected. And, it was so interesting, the Barve which you were showing me.
Yeah, so I don't really look at it. I was telling you, second generation collector, and my parents would collect, but they were really kind to nurture this hobby of mine very, very early on. Every work that came, it used to come for approval. It's even when I learned that word the first time, the work would come from a gallery in those days. It would be kept in the house. And I was asked to comment on it, choose, is it something I like, don't like? And if I didn't like it, they didn't buy it.
How old were you for this during this time? I mean, how old were you?
At same time. So it was 8, 9, 10, very, very 94, early 90s. And I mean, it was really, every work was actually chosen. So I don't look at it. I look at it from a point of view which is the moderns, contemporary, everything merges. I'm just living with great art. Now I'm more curious because there are new friends, right? Unfortunately, a lot of our progressive friends, and I sound much older than I am, so I'm glad you said I'm only 35, 36. But a lot of those artists are no more, and but those relationships, those memories are around me in the form of great art. But now it's a different kind of infusion. It's younger artists. It's what we call mid-career artists. So it's really a mix of all of those. Yeah.
But like it's a mix of all of those. Like, tell us a few kind of like how now when you are buying contemporaries, how do you think and look at them? Like you said, you are so friendly with Shilpa, and you just bought her work, and you bought Aisha Sultan, and you've just bought Harsha's work also. I mean, Nilima, you just bought also. So I mean, to say your acquisitions, they continue as you just talk about those Barbe which you had, and
Yeah.
you
So
know, your I mean, do you follow fashion and fad, or when you hear about that XYZ, or like minimal art everybody's talking about? We both have discussed that many times. I mean, how do you look at it, and how do you
so I think
sense?
art I think art is too expensive to be taken in by a fad or fashion. I personally, I don't know, I can't speak for anyone else, but I can't afford to put so much money on a fashion or a trend that's going to change. So I don't obviously go by fashion and fad. I like to be rooted in the source. I like to talk to artists. Really understand what they're thinking. When I buy a work of art, I'm not buying that one piece of art. We don't have images right now, but I learned about Harsha with a monumental work that he had done on the Cosmos in Kochi at the Biennale. And ever since that, ever since that time, I just really wanted to have a work of his. So when I buy that work, obviously I love that work. It's a small piece of his entire practice, his entire of what he's all about in terms of cosmos, the miniature form, the different scenarios he talks about in today's contextual, in a context of today's environment. So I think it comes, I think, like, for example, with Shilpa, such a long friendship, and she and I always laugh because honestly, Rajiv, Saini, and Shilpa were the ones who actually made what I call a comeback to my collection. It had kind of stagnated, it had become comfortable. Progressives, and conversations with them really infused a new kind of interest in the contemporary. Uh, with Shilpa, I mean, for the longest time, I couldn't understand her work, to be honest. And she laughed about it, but very patiently over many dinners and lunches, explained to me the idea of it, why it's interesting. And after 6.5 years, I've only recently got a work. And she always said, neither of us are going anywhere. Take your time. Because I used to almost feel guilty. Why do I not have someone I admire? But, with Shilpa, for example, the works are so monumental, or they're so institutional friendly, it becomes very difficult to have the right work for your collection. Also, when I buy something that's conceptual, it has to speak to a Ram Kumar or a Sudhir. It can't just be, I'm buying Shilpa because it's what's what people like these days. It has to speak to the entire collection. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, this generally, many collectors I've met, especially in the West, they say that they do not want to meet artists. And many people, most of the art collectors would like to meet artists and then know more about them to understand their art. And so I think for you also, it's important to know the artists, since you bought them all out of friendships, developing friendships.
Yes, Renu, why do they not want to meet the artist? Did they get to that?
Yeah, they said to me, they said, we do not want to meet artists because we just want to only relate to the work and just live with the work. And we want to relate to the artist through the work. You see,
So
some people.
I'm the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
So,
Completely opposite end of the spectrum. I can't relate to a work and it's not to say that I haven't bought works of an artist that I haven't met. Obviously that's happened, but it comes from seeing videos, it comes from reading books, it comes from talking to people that may have known them, when they were around, or what inspired them. I think we had an image, I think, of Sudhir's work, and he was actually talking about why that entire exhibition is important, because it's about introspection. It's about how he's looking back at his own life. This work was called The Abstractionist, and it's this quest for abstraction. Is an abstractionist the only real kind of artist? And I just fell completely in love with that idea, so I feel like, again, buying that work is not just that work. It's buying into what Sudhir was thinking at that point of time. So I need to talk to the artist or delve deeper into a little bit, get a peek of what their mind is like.
Yeah, because you said the same thing for Nalini, the lovely Nalini, large Nalini you have in your possession. And I love the way you said, like, I would like to own it. I like to own the artist's thoughts through the work.
Nalini is another example of someone I saw reverse acrylic works of hers, I think maybe back in the 90s. And those are not the kind of artists or the kind of works maybe that my parents were interested in. They were more interested, say, for example, in the progressives. I liked Nalini, but obviously at that time you can't buy everything, right? You have limited space, you have limited funds. I mean, you have to prioritize. And the reason I bought Nalini now is I liked her video work. In Bombay, they had an exhibition. I really loved the video work, and I can't have that work. I can't own that work. So I felt like this is a time that I wanted to go back and revisit the work that I had liked and get something that's quintessentially Nalini. So that's really the reason, I pick one.
Now, you and I, like, we've had several discussions, and we've spoken, I mean, both of us, my experience, your experience, and there's so many common things, which common artists and common works and common friendships we both have shared during our discussions. I also would like you to share with us, your experiences as a collector with artists, your personal experiences, your studio visits when you used to go, as a kid also, and when you grew also, all these personal experiences, like, when you used to go on those food tours with Hussain Saab.
Yeah.
And that, and even I would like you to talk about that very dark, which I've never seen such a dark Budway, which I really couldn't show now. And I said to you, a dark Budway like this. And you said, so if you could talk about these things. I hope I'm not asking you too many questions, right?
No. Great. I love talking to you, Renu, but I hope it's making for fun and informative hearing for all our viewers.
Yes, absolutely.
But this is always a pleasure. Talking about experiences with artists, I'll focus a little bit on, I think, Hussain Saab.
Yeah.
Only because he was a little bit of a snob when I first knew him. He knew who he was.
I can never imagine snob.
No, he was. He had that slight sense of presence, and he knew who he was. A lot of other artists were trying, even Ram Kumar, for example, very humble and thanking you for having his work. But someone like Hussain Saab was a little bit, and obviously I didn't know him at all, so there was no context as a child. But over a period of time, I remember, there was a interesting. There was an event where Hussain Saab was honoring Satyajit Ray, and the card said, the artist will paint at the event. And I went all excited and, looking forward to Hussain Saab painting. And he came in great style and painted these 3 flowers on top of an already painted canvas, and just stood and smiled, all of that. Most dejected. And this was one of at least 100 experiences, because I was on this quest. He used to call me at some point, he used to call me CID. He's like, everywhere I'm, no one knows I'm so nomadic in that sense, but where I am. So I remember going to him once and saying, there was cameras, and, Amitabh Bachchan was there, and there was this whole book launch happening. And I go to him and I'm like, I'm really tired of meeting you when you're MF. You talk to me when you're Makbul. And that's when I think it really clicked with him. And he's like, sorry?
How old were you?
I think this was around 2002. So I may have been 20 by this point. So I said, really many years of like pursuing him. And then I was like, talk to me when you're Makbul. And he said, you come tomorrow to the gallery. And he totally, I could see it, something snapped. And he got like really, interactive. And then he moved out in 2006 to Dubai. And we had started kind of developing some sort of a friendship since 2002. So I flew to Dubai to meet him because I was also feeling really sad with, him having to move out, etc. So I went to him and he said, what can I, like, where should I take you? And we were at Noodle Bar in Dubai and we were
Oh,
eating
his
lunch.
favorite. His
Yeah.
favorite. I
So
used to go with.
we were eating a lunch and something happened. I said, Hussain Saab, I was really little. I was 10 years old or 9 years old. And these, they said the artist is going to paint at the event and you didn't paint. You came and only did 3. He said, ha, I remember, man, I had done that, in his style. So he said, but you come now. And he had 9 panels ready and he started painting vigorously. And he said, no dream of yours should not come true. Why will you? So something like, and talking about movie, I mean, how many 94-year-olds had the presence of mind to talk from 1915 about Indira Gandhi, about Madhuri Dixit, Mother Teresa, his tryst with Picasso. So it really took me down to such an amazing journey. I think I always credit him. I mean, I told you, I started the conversation with me wanting to be him. And then by the end of really knowing him, I wanted to be a person like him. He was so magnanimous, confident, giving.
Yeah, just like crazy.
Yeah, so that's one, and I think recently I remembered him. Shilpa was reading to me a lockdown work, which was yet to be launched in Germany. I think she had done this flapboard, and she was reading even before it was out. Very kindly, she was, because I'm always very interested in these conversations. I put the phone down, and Renu, you won't believe, I just sat there so grateful. Because how many people can listen to 20 years ago Urdu poetry from Hussain Saab and on the same side listen to Shiv? I don't know if they would agree with each other, but I definitely have this amazing honor of, listening to 2 such different perspectives and being a part of, Indian art history.
When I came onto this field, I used to be I learnt my actually art history or art practice through sitting with more Hussain Saab, but the other artists also, the other seniors like Swaminathan was one of my very regular ones. Ram Kumar also I used to go. So you learn through the masters, and nowadays it's very rare to get these opportunity to sit with artists and talk about art practice of what's happening around. And I think you are one of those blessed ones who's had this opportunity of learning from the masters when since you were a kid and sitting with Hussain Saab and learning about life. You see, what is art collecting? It's also an extension of your life. It extends to your life too.
Absolutely.
And other artists also, like Barve also, you said to me about...
I mean, I spoke a little bit about the diary and we don't have the image.
To visit him to his
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah, I would go to visit him, and he would put out these canvases. And why I really, there was one work, not many people know this, but my school used to be in Mahim and I stay at Malabar Hills, so quite a distance. And the Bombay bomb blast had happened in 94. And I was really, really worked up because the driver who had come to pick me up from school, there was blood stains on the car because they were helping people on the road. The whole city had kind of shaken up. And I was very, very moved by this whole moment. I didn't know how I was going to get home. I was literally going through these, bomb blasts and complete mayhem across the city. And just, I think, a month or 2 months later, I think my dad must have taken me to Barve's studio and he asked, will you drink something? And I said, yeah, I'll have a thumbs up. So I found it very quirky. He removed the thumbs up. He didn't have a fridge. He put it on this ice cube and he was doing this for some time as if he's sekoing bhutta or something, and I'm just like looking like, what is he doing? And then he opens it and gives it to me. Such a simple, austere living, which you see in his work.
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah. And he put up this work and he said, this is a ruthless prayer. And it's based on the Bombay bomb blast. So, because of that, there was some sort of a connection with maybe choosing a work like that. But now on hindsight, I look back and I think it's the best Barbie I've seen, if I may say so myself.
What a Bombay. I saw the image, and when I come to Bombay, I'm going to surely come. I think
Sure.
they're running. I mean, also, great collections are mostly built by. I think not mostly. They're built by dealers or galleries worldwide, globally, and have been built. I want to know from you, and how did galleries help you in building your collection, or your along with your parents? I mean, would you say as galleries role in your building your collection?
So I think maybe I've inherited this as a second generation collector, and again the focus and the love for the artists directly. But obviously, galleries have played a huge role in making it accessible for us. We started collecting, as you can see, both. I mean, two generations started collecting in '94, but the collection is not reflective of a collection that now it seems like a long time, but it looks like there was at least 3 or 4 generations of collecting before that, with what galleries have made possible for us to have as a family. So I think in terms of simple things like people calling up and saying Hussein's in the gallery, come, you don't want to miss this. That access is what the galleries facilitated. I mean, today it's becoming increasingly more important because, I mean, we've spoken about how privileged and grateful I am to have that access. But today galleries make walkthroughs possible, studio visits possible. You don't need to know the artist. You don't need to be that deeply entrenched. You can learn at any point of time with an exhibit walkthrough, for example. And how I said my comeback period in terms of collecting, the galleries have been. I waited. Renu, I struggled with contemporary art for the first time. I felt like a complete outsider. I felt I didn't understand contemporary art. I was really nervous to like dip my toes in this again. And this is coming from me being a 10-year-old confident one saying, I know every artist, and Tayyab, you don't understand falling figure. Like, are you crazy? But suddenly I'm like, okay, now, what is Mithu Sen doing? I couldn't understand it. But you grow to love it. And, everyone was so patient. Not just, pressurizing you to say, for example, buy something or look at it. All of them said, take time, learn, get into it and help me through the process. So the support was I can't say, I mean, it was not enough how much they supported me.
Oh, wonderful. Also, now tell me about, it's a question which may take you by surprise, but are you competitive as a collector?
Not at all. Not at all.
So
Not
I need to possess this, or I need this in the auction, I need that in the auction. So, it's like,
experiential. If I have an experience with it, and I'll tell you something, Renu, I really believe this. It's happened more than a couple of times when a work has come back to me when it's gone away from me. I feel artworks find themselves to the people that really want to have them, and they leave when they no longer serve that collector. I really believe that. So I've seen works, say from 2 years, 3 years ago, that have just fallen in my lap. Now, obviously, I have to go and buy it and go through that whole process. But it's become accessible to me at a time where it was not for sale. Because I've just really, I don't know if it's manifestation or what it is. It happened with the Harsha. It happened with the Nalini, Nilima Sheikh. So these works kind of find their way back. I'm not competitive. I am actually the least competitive. I feel like, I'll tell you why. Because I feel like if it's almost like a code between some of us. I don't know if galleries are aware of this or not, but some collector friends actually call up each other and they're like, there's this in the market, and I can't buy it, or I already have 5 of them, or it's too big, or I can't afford it. You must get it. And we have this network amongst ourselves where we are like, go for it. And the reason I think is because you can't own everything. There's art, there's never enough wall space, and there's never enough of a budget that you can have to have art. So make your friends have it, go to their house, have a drink, and enjoy that work there.
how
Versus,
beautiful. God, how
yeah.
beautiful. magnanimous. But what about then? I think you really answered it. Should collectors talk to each other and exchange notes with acquisition? You really answered that question. For now, my another thing is when you started. Sorry,
Why?
you can.
I feel like they absolutely should, because it helps us get out of our own ivory towers. All of us collectors, I think, have some level of ego, and I have this and I have the best and all of that. That's there. So I feel like what it does is it gives you a new perspective on things. I might like a certain kind of art, but someone will come and say this is all rubbish, and I like that. I enjoy that because that's how you learn. So absolutely, collectors should talk to each other.
Also wanted to know, like when you started your collection, there was no investment point in India about investing in art, and now it's all about investments, and which I kind of shy away as a gallerist. I mean, it's an important part now of buying art because the stakes have become much higher. How do you look at it when you acquire art? Because earlier I know it wouldn't have come across your mind, but now how do you look at investment as a, which is a very important part of with the way a collector looks at it?
So I feel really sad, and I don't know if this is a controversial answer, but I feel really sad that to some degree, it's not enough to just like a work today. Back in the day, I felt like it was enough to just like a work and you could spend, but prices have gone up. It's a large share of the wallet, and it's not enough to just like it. It has to grow on you. You have to be knowledgeable that you're not going to outgrow it. And for God, God forbid, for any reason, if one does need to sell it, uh, you shouldn't be stuck with a big hole in your pocket, right, at the end of the day. So I look at it like that. Obviously, to me, it comes from a place of passion. I've never looked at it as an investment. I'm the kind of person who'll think in a pandemic with a quarantine, I'm like, acha, now my return on investment has happened because I'm seeing the work more than I would have otherwise. I'm not traveling, I'm stuck in a room. What more, return on an investment than just the complete joy of having a great work in the house? You don't want to be stuck in a room that has no works.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Now, what is, because the time is running out, we're 35 minutes now for 10 minutes more. What would be your advice to a young collector who's embarking on this journey of buying art? What kind of advice would you give?
With me, my journey, I mean, I don't know if I can give advice, but I do want to tell, like I already kind of covered, it's not enough to just like the work. It's important to learn a lot about the artist, the entire practice. I think be ready for a sacrifice. There is a sacrifice with art. You have to sacrifice that sea view and cover it with a wall because you want to have good art there. Or you want to sacrifice a fancy car or a trip abroad, another trip abroad, because you need to go buy another piece of art. So it does involve a level of sacrifice. It's not like, you can buy everything. There's huge opportunity costs to some of these things. But I really feel the only advice that I give people is, your people buy shoes, people buy bags, and people have lots of different priorities, which is fine. But if you can keep a small budget aside for art, you're buying into culture. You're buying into a time in history. That's not, forget the appreciation, depreciation, forget the fact that there's a fad or not a fad. You're buying into something that's going to be with you and that you're going to take forward in some way or form. You're the carrier of that. And I take that very, very seriously.
I think so.
Yeah, so I think coming back to advice, I think sacrifice is something that's going to happen in this process. If you're seriously collecting as a one-time thing, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to get into this journey, which I think most people that I know, it's a disease. It's addictive. You almost want to keep,
It's a mad journey.
yeah, you don't stop. But the sacrifice is so worth it because it gives you friendship. It's given me networks, recognition, but most importantly, immense joy and experiences it's given me. That sacrifice is totally worth it.
Wow, that's great. I think we now have to end our conversation, running short of time. And thank you so much, Udit. And it's really been quite enriching to hear your views on collecting art. And I think now we'll go on a few. I think there are some questions. One question let's take is it's Shireen Gandhi who's saying, do you think you can convert your passion to a professional pursuit?
I'm not, the thing is, it depends. I would love to do something because it's so close to me. It's something but it depends on what it would be. I'm totally open to something like that. But say, for example, could there be digitized? Everyone can't have a museum. For example, I have a digital background. Is digital museums possible? I want works. I want more collectors. It doesn't have to be professional. I want people to have more collections. I want people to become collectors. I want those works to be accessible to more people. And you don't have to have a physical museum. Not everyone is able to do that. Not everyone has the infrastructure. But whether it's catalogs, whether it's a compilation of what one has, the experiences, the stories, I think that needs to come out. So if I can facilitate that and make money, I'll be very happy.
Oh, that's so wonderful, because it's such a macro thing, and it's so it's more for the public. Plus, you can monetize it, and I think nowadays everything is monetization too.
Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
question which is saying it's Aarti Dharini who's saying really interesting art talk. Nice to know the views of the art collector in simple terms. Anyway, there is one more question which has come up. What are your plans for your any plans for your collection which you want to do with them? What you want to do?
Not at the moment. I don't think so. I think
To think of any of the plans. You're too
sorry.
young. I'm saying you're too young.
Yeah, I'm figuring out my own life plans right now. I'm too. It's too. I still need to figure out the art plans.
Also, do you have any suggestions on how you can or collectors can take the Indian art scene more global, or how can you energize the Indian art scene into convincing or creating a movement of young collectors who kind of, because you guys are the, you carry the torch of collecting for the future generations. I mean, you are the future generation, but further down, I mean, how would you, I met a collector a young chap in New York, and he said that he collects very conceptual art also and very contemporary art. And he said, I use my loft to show art and call friends over to see, and if they want to buy, then they buy through the gallery or to the artist. But I show them that I validate this artist. So that's what I'm asking, and it's how I think we also need.
Yeah, I think there's already a fantastic job being done in terms of how the Indian art scene is energized. I think I might sound very flippant when I say this, but I think the downtime away from an art fair and actually having parties and socializing and networking with each other. I go to New York and I have collectors that I've met at the Delhi India Art Fair in Delhi. I have people connecting me and saying on Instagram, "Hey, I'm in New York as well. Do you want to go to this museum together?" So I think the whole world is actually getting much smaller. Uh,
Absolutely.
in terms of the parties are important. I think I don't mean parties, but I literally mean like, shaking a leg with Anju Dodia is always more fun than, always sitting and listening to a walkthrough, which is also very fun, but a different kind of. So I think that energy is important. I think it brings in younger collectors. It connects collectors across the world and makes our world much, much smaller as an ecosystem. I think collectors, galleries, artists need to work together to kind of improve our own Indian ecosystem. We need to, I think what you guys are doing with TAP is fabulous. I think the pandemic has made galleries collaborate in ways that they've never collaborated before, I think.
Yes,
So,
I agree with you. I
yeah.
agree with you.
So, so I
We
think,
have Tap, and then you have In Touch also, which so I think there are many other platforms, but Tap being 15 galleries and these Tap live conversations, I think that's a very interesting thing which we are doing. And
so I think it's, macro factors are really driving us to be creative and, infuse the energy ourselves. I don't think I can really give advice on it. Everyone's doing a fantastic job, but we are torchbearers of the Indian art ecosystem, all of us, collectors, galleries, artists, and we need to work closely with each other to see how we can, grow that.
What about now Indian collectors? Every economy and the art market grows and matures. You buy more of collectors everywhere. You start buying more of international art. But what do you think of Indian collectors now? This whole thing, many people are emphasizing that you should buy more international art. This kind of a thing. What do you, as a collector of so many years, you feel that if you were asked to buy international art or Southeast Asian art, or what do you think of it?
Sorry, I a little bit, Renu, but I think you were asking me on international art. So Indian versus international art, I feel like we are paying millions of dollars to buy art that is talking about not having borders and boundaries in today's day and age, and we are creating these walls around us which don't need to be created. We are only going to lock ourselves in. I mean, how can you get more international than, I mean, we've seen with Zarina Hashmi, right? We've seen with Subodh, with Shilpa, with Bharti. There's so many interesting conversations happening where Indian artists are talking a global language. For example, it's one world. Why are we demarcating things? Do what works for you. If you're making a house in New York, please buy international art or work that fits that. I feel like I'm too close personally. I'm not saying I'm averse to it. It again, from an investment point of view, it may make sense because it's got more eyeballs. There are more people viewing that kind of art. There's more people, having access to that kind of art globally. But it took time to get there, and I think we need to do something ourselves in our own country to take it there, rather than just comparing international and Indian art. I don't believe it.
Wow. I really love this answer of yours. Okay, thank you, Udit, and thank you all the viewers all the friends who've joined us and all the viewers who've joined us. And it's really, really been a very, very enlightening one from Udit Bhambri. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. And congratulations to you and all the galleries for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you.